Liz Schwegler is my fellow co-founder, the SVP of digital here at Sister District. She is going to tell us a little bit about the history, story of Sister District. And then we are going to go into 2024. The opportunities ahead are incredible, brilliant organizing political director, Sean Warner. And then our head of organizing, the inimitable Susan Farrell, is going to talk about a few different ways to take action with Sister District, how to translate whatever emotion it is that you're feeling right now into concrete action that is going to make you feel great and make an impact on all of our lives and this wonderful country that we live in. So thank you so much for being here. This is an amazing turnout. We are so thrilled to see this kind of energy. Thank you again, and I will turn it over to my co-founder, Liz.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to see you all here. This is going to be a huge call, and it's going to be really wonderful. I already see some old friends, some new friends in the chat, and at least one former candidate of ours. So that's always pretty fun. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Sister District and how we got started, and a little bit about our mission before I hand it off to our absolutely incredible staff. We started Sister District after the first Trump election in 2016. And our mission was very simple and powerful, we think, which is to build progressive power in state legislatures. At the time, we wanted to focus on state legislatures specifically because we saw it was the very painful and unfair effects of gerrymandering on the general election in 2016. And we knew that since state legislatures control redistricting, we had just a few years to flip some state legislatures before the next census in 2020, which I think we all remember how that went. But states are also the places where many of the policies that shape our lives are made. They're on the front lines of issues like reproductive rights, voting access, public education. The list is so long. So since our founding, between the first Trump administration and obviously an increasingly extremely conservative Supreme Court, more and more power has been gutted from the federal government and returned back to state legislatures. And so our work at this level has really become more important than ever. In terms of our organizing model, it's very simple. As a volunteer, you're sorted into a team based on where you live. So geographically nearby other volunteers. And then we in HQ, as we like to call ourselves, we match volunteer teams with critical state legislative races around the country that are on very narrow margins, where we could flip or hold a chamber, where we can make inroads in really critical legislatures, chambers, things like that. And we provide candidates with the support that they need in those tough districts. So you'll hear more from our staff in a minute about our incredible wins this cycle, and some of the amazing work that our volunteers, many of whom are on this call right now, have been doing. And if you're new, you'll hear about how easy it is to plug into our community. We believe that volunteering at the state ledge level is one of the most impactful ways that you can spend your time and energy. These are small races. They're often under the radar. Their impact is incredibly profound. And these races are winnable. We're not talking about millions of votes needed for the presidential election. We're not talking about millions of dollars, or I think close to $1 billion was spent this, or yeah, I think so, this cycle for the presidential level. We are talking, or on the election as a whole, we're talking about races that can be decided by just a few dozen votes. Small budgets, grassroots dollars really make a difference. We have candidates who literally will handwrite thank you notes to every single donor, even $5 donors. They'll call donors saying thank you. Many people on this call have probably gotten a personal phone call or personal outreach from a candidate that they have donated to. So that means that every door that you knock, every postcard you write, every phone call you make really does make a difference. So since a lot of you are new to Sister District, and maybe some of you are actually new to political activism completely, and that was true of a lot of us in 2016 as well, when Trump was first elected. I think we were all taken by surprise in that moment, and there was such a huge outpouring of energy and urgency, and that was the moment that Sister District was really founded out of. And if you remember, we used to call it the resistance, quote unquote, term. We don't really use so much anymore, but that's what we called it back then. And the moment that we're in now does it is of course similar in a lot of ways. I know everyone's feeling a lot of grief and a lot of urgency over a second Trump administration looming. But I do want to just name that it does feel different to us and probably to many of you that are here with us today. Those of you who've been with us for a long time or have been taking other action and being involved with activism probably are feeling some exhaustion, but also the responsibility of needing to keep this work going. I know that we are at Sister District, we all feel incredibly profoundly that this is still important, more important than ever. So those of you who are new are probably wondering, like, how much time can I really commit to this? Is this something, can I afford to have my whole life taken over by political activism? I mean, I would argue yes, but just to be realistic. So I want to just take a moment to tell you a little story from our very first cycle at Sister District. And I hope that that can just illustrate a little bit of what I've been talking about in terms of our mission. That year, which was 2017, we had been, myself and my co-founders, Lala is one of them, we'd been working tirelessly to just get the organization off the ground, trying to capitalize on all of this, the incredible energy that was, boiling and roiling on the left, the energy of the resistance. So we've been working really hard for many, many months. And in November, we decided to head from California, where we were all living at the time, out to Virginia to knock on doors to help get out the vote. And for those of you who don't know, Virginia has off cycle elections. So they have general elections in odd years. Next year, 2025, will be another general election in Virginia. So in 2017, that was sort of the name of the game. So Lala and our other co-founder Gabby and I flew out to Virginia. We drove all across the state, and Virginia is not a small state. We canvassed for almost every single campaign that we were supporting that year. And on election night, we were working at a polling location. Once the polls closed, we rushed back to our Airbnb to clean up. We were getting ready to go to a watch party. And almost immediately, as soon as the polls closed, the return started pouring in, and it was just win after win after win. And if any of you who are either from Virginia or were with Sister District at the time, you might remember how incredibly exhilarating it felt to see all of these wins coming in just like one after the other after such a hard year. And that night it turned into a landslide. It was a blue landslide. We were so exhilarated. We were overwhelmed. It literally felt like to us like we had just organized some volunteers, organized ourselves, knocked on some doors, made some phone calls, and then, boom, just wins everywhere. So we thought, wow, this is incredible. This really works. How hard can it be? And then pretty soon it became clear that one of our candidates, Shelley Simons, ended up in a dead tie, an actual tie, not a, within 1,000 votes. I mean, literally the exact same number of votes. So of course the race went to a very long recount, which took weeks. And eventually they literally pulled a name out of a hat to decide the winner. And it was not Shelley's name. So she lost. And she was one of the candidates that we had actually canvassed for, we co-founders. But while we were out knocking doors for her, we just got tired. It was a hot day in Southern Virginia, and we went and got lunch halfway through. So it felt like it came down to so few votes, and we hadn't knocked every door. It felt very, very, very personal, even though, of course, there's lots that go on in any given race. So in 2019, we had the 2018 cycle during the midterms. In 2019, we were able to come back and flip that seat and the entire legislature in Virginia. Virginia had a blue trifecta. But then in 2021, the Republicans won the governorship. They flipped the House back. We won it back again in 2023. And now here we are again in 2025, trying to work in that same state again, back in the fight after, at this point, many years of struggle back and forth. And so I'm telling you the story for a couple reasons. One is to show that real change is possible. We can make a tangible difference at the state ledge level. Outcomes are often decided by just a few handful or a few dozen votes. And we have so many examples like that where, just two or three or, 10's 63 votes decided the Pennsylvania House a couple years ago. It's very, very small. And the second is to just remind us all that change isn't linear. It's often two steps forward, one step back. There's these moments where we have incredibly exhilarating wins, and then there's also some moments where we have setbacks that remind us of the work still ahead. And the truth is that the moment we're in now is so different from when we started in 2017 in a good way. Back then, it felt like we were just laying, the first bricks of a new movement. And now we're much farther along. You'll hear us repeat this stat often, but in 2016, Democrats held majorities in just 29 state legislative chambers. Now we control nearly 40. So the landscape looks very different from how it did in 2017, and we have so many groups in the ecosystem, not just Sister District, although we're certainly one of them, that are stronger, more strategic, and better organized than ever. This year alone, Lala alluded to some of the good news that we've been talking about, even though obviously the presidential did not go how anybody wanted. But in 2024, it was not all bad news at the state ledge level. We flipped critical seats in North Carolina, in the North Carolina House and the Wisconsin Senate. We broke the Republican supermajorities in both those chambers, which means that the Democratic governors there are veto proof. They can protect voting rights, abortion access, so many more of these really critical rights that we care about that are governed at the state ledge level. In Pennsylvania, we defended our hard-fought Democratic majority, very narrow majority in the House. In Minnesota, we preserved Democratic control in a pivotal special election. And altogether, we endorsed 53 candidates in 9 states. We won 30 of those races, which I would like to say is pretty impressive, given the extremely polarized landscape today and a lot of the headwinds that we were facing in the general election. So with that, speaking of our impact, I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, Sean Warner. He's our organizing and political director. He's going to dive a little deeper into some of the wins that I just mentioned and how we're scaling our efforts to make a big difference in 2025. So with that, Sean, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. And I first just want to thank everybody that's on this call. Before we get into any presentation, I just have a favor to ask. Please, I know if we can actually just unspotlight me that for real quick so everyone can see everybody else that's on the call, I think that would be really helpful. Just so that we can see that when we thought we felt alone or we felt kind of isolated in those early days after the election, I just want you to scroll across the 12 pages of people that are here. I loved everyone popping where they're calling in from on the chat. You all are the people that are going to be the energy that carries us forward. You all are the reason why this work must continue. And so just, pop in a chat. If you see someone, say hi, message someone. It is this community that creates that perseverance. It is this community that has sustained and done such amazing works over the last 8 years. Of course, I'm probably, like many of you on this call, the political person in people's families. And so people are wondering, what are your thoughts on the election, Sean? And quite honestly, I don't want to talk about what happened at the presidential election. There's still a lot for us to learn. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay attention and learn all of those key findings from the 2024 presidential election. But what I want to do is I want to reject what is ultimately happening. We do know that he's most likely going to overstep and do really, really bad things. And we all, as a community, will stand up for our neighbors and our loved ones when they are in jeopardy. But there's a lot more that we can control. So when my family reaches out and says, Sean, can you believe he just appointed someone without a college degree? I can say, I can't believe that, but you know what I can't control? the confirmation hearing in the US Senate. But what I can control is working in tandem with thousands of Americans that are fighting for their community. And I send them a quick link. I send them a donation link to Sister District because I know that those small contributions, whether they're big or small, are going to add up because we are all collectively here. On November 6th, the thing that caused me the greatest concern was that we wouldn't be able to find the energy to stand up and fight again. As I look across these 12 screens filled with people, I'm just absolutely inspired. And thank you for being here. So let's not talk about the negative. Let's get on with the show. I'd like to put the slides back up and let's get into it. As Liz had mentioned, a handful of state legislative seats in key chambers can really create everlasting power. I think about North Carolina. Dante Pittman, who's up there on the right, he won in House District 26, flipping a Republican seat, which caused us to break a supermajority. Now, Governor-elect Josh Stein is able to stop all of the bad things that the Republicans are ultimately going to try to do. And in fact, it was them overriding vetoes of Governor Cooper that caused a lot of harm on North Carolinians. I also want to highlight that we're still just one seat away from breaking that supermajority in the Senate. And when we are talking about tight elections, look here. So many of our sister district teams should feel so proud that Woodson Bradley, one of the closest seats in the North Carolina Senate, won by 209 votes. We'll get to some metrics a little later, but there were a lot of phone banks that called more than 209 people, even in just one evening. We can go to the next slide. In Minnesota, there was a resignation in the summer, which created an opening of a Democratic seat. Our esteemed alum, someone that we had worked with in the past, that we helped get elected to the Minnesota Senate in the past. She courageously stayed engaged in her community after not running for re-election in the new districts. And because of that, we were very nimble and able to endorse in this amazing special election, which kept the DFL in control of the upper chamber in Minnesota. This will be absolutely critical so we can continue to drive the narrative of what it means to have Democratic lawmakers setting the agenda and advancing policy that improves the lives of those living in that state. In Pennsylvania, this is my hometown. Democrats, unfortunately, at the statewide level, had a pretty tough night, but I'm so thrilled and so proud over the many, many years that Sister District has been working in Pennsylvania that we were able to maintain the narrowest of majorities. We have a 102 to 101 control. Speaker Joanna McClinton will be able to guide that caucus of 102 people to do amazing things. And we are so thrilled to have supported Mandy Steele, who represents a district just outside of Pittsburgh, where her margin actually increased from in 2022. I highlight Pennsylvania because in that work in 2022 that we sustained in 2024, it was only 63 votes. Talking about ROI cycle after cycle, those 63 votes in 2022 are still paying dividends, and we look forward to seeing them drive that continued narrative, advancing things like raising the minimum wage, which has not been raised and is still at $7.25 in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We can go to the next slide. In Wisconsin, this has been a journey for a very long time because this used to be the most gerrymandered state in the entire nation. Republicans garnered control and then they drew lines to keep control. After several cycles, after cycles being able to prevent the assembly from going into the supermajority, we kept Governor Evers' veto very strong, which allowed us to have new maps heading into 2024. Under those newer, fairer maps, Democrats picked up every target in the Wisconsin Senate. We are only 2 seats away from flipping that chamber in 2026. I just want to highlight 2 amazing senators-elect who stepped forward and are going to be amazing members of the Wisconsin Senate, Chris Alfheim and Jody Habush-Sinegan. In the Assembly, we picked up 10 seats. Now we're only 5 seats from an outright majority, and we are definitely looking forward to those opportunities in 2026. Go to the next slide. In Georgia, a place where Republicans got another opportunity to redistrict. And of course, they targeted our amazing sister district alum, Dr. Michelle Au and Dr. Jasmine Clark, two of the leading voices for causes that we all are passionate about. And of course, they changed their districts. We were proud to stand with those sister district alum, making sure that they were reelected, and they were. And they will have two new colleagues in the Democratic caucus, creating one of the largest Democratic caucuses in the Georgia House in decades. Overall, as Liz has said, we are picking the tough districts and winning. These aren't the districts that are just slam ducks. And over our tenure, 67% win rate, 2 out of 3, which is just absolutely remarkable. 148 out of 220 campaigns that we endorse is a perfect illustration of the long-standing and continued power that we are building in our states, places where we know legislatures just can't punt it to the next session, but they have to do the work of the people and improve their lives. We can go to the next slide. In 2024, our sister district teams raised $838,000. Of that money, over 70% of that money was early money, allowing these campaigns to hire staff to be able to be more confident in spending decisions so they could get their message out as early as possible. Nearly $130,000 was raised for our state bridges programs. These are for organizations that we partner with in our states who are doing grassroots work year-round, on cycle, off cycle, and $52,000 was able to be raised for Sister District HQ so that we can continue to do that work. I think the most remarkable thing is 150 plus fundraisers through Sister Districts teams. And I think that that's really the most remarkable number. What I think is, we can go to the next slide, 150 house parties of people like all of those folks that we just saw as we scrolled throughout this, coming together, pitching in, and making a massive collective effort. Our sister district teams truly do put the fun in fundraising. You can see just a myriad of pictures and all of the creative ideas, whether that's a soup kitchen, whether that's Sense for Democracy, plant sales, garage sales. And because of the sister district staff, we are providing those opportunities that if you have an idea, we want to see come to fruition. It is your passion, bringing along your people and those that are in your lives that are going to be able to make that impact. And we want to absolutely make sure that we're able to foster and facilitate all of that. We can go to the next slide. But as I mentioned, it's not just fundraising, it's not just dollars, it is having direct conversations with voters in these key districts. 1.98 million phone calls to targeted voters across our 53 endorsed campaigns is absolutely remarkable. We sat and had conversations with 6,751 voters, making sure that we walked through so that they knew how to ultimately go vote, which is the industry's best standard on making sure that someone is actually going to cast their ballot. 43% of our candidates' calls came from sister district phone banks. We can go to the next slide. And the reason why that is so critical is because phone banking is the most effective form of voter contact outside of any state legislative district. Now, we're all across the country, but if we want to make an impact, talking to voters and walking them through how they can exercise their right to vote and make a difference in their communities, we know that this is the best tactic if you are outside of the district. So two-way conversations, we just have identified and changed over to make sure that we have the most cutting edge technology so that we're not constantly just dialing, but we're talking to as many voters as possible. And for some of you on here, that may sound very scary. Talking to strangers on the phone, don't worry about it. Not only will you have fellow volunteers that will be in similar situations, but truly one of the best trainings that exists to make sure that you have not only a script, but the agency to empower you as well as other volunteers in your lives how to make those calls. And unique to Sister District, this is all directly in tandem with our directly with our campaigns. And so, if they have a bunch of absentee mail ballots that haven't been returned and they need some extra capacity, they call Sister District, and our amazing group of volunteers throughout the country are able to be deployed to promote and to do such an important piece of their campaign's work, taking it directly off their plate so that they can go focus on what we know is really effective, talking to voters at their doors about the issues that matter to them. Go to the next slide. Don't worry, if you would like to go to a district, I'm sure there are some volunteers that are on this call right now that were able to join our candidates in their communities, talking to their voters. We knocked on close to 10,000 doors and wrote over 83,000 postcards. I think that one of the things that's most critical about postcarding and canvassing is it really does reinforce and create that sense of community and making sure that we are all remembering that we are all in this together. Those are all opportunities, again, working closely with all of our endorsed campaigns so that we know that those postcards are being sent exactly to the right person, as well as when you come into the district that you're going to be knocking on the doors that are going to have the greatest impact. And when we're winning by 209 votes, or as Dante won by just over 900, these are the exact actions that we know are going to propel these people, and their victory then propels collective power within their states. And that collective power in the states, we know very well will impact people's lives. We can go to the next slide. And so all of that action, seeing all of you on this really just excites me because the opportunities ahead truly are abound. If we look at the 2025-2026 election cycle, we know that the party that is in the White House often has significant historic setbacks in what folks call the midterm elections. Well, at Sister District, there is no midterm. We're constantly just working to make sure every opportunity is taken advantage of. In 2025, we need to hold the House, the narrow House majority, and making sure that we create, again, a potentially Democratic trifecta. For those of you that are either from Virginia or have been working in Virginia, can remember when we had that Democratic trifecta, when frequently I would see headlines first in the South, and that would be abolishing the death penalty, preventing the LGBTQ community from discrimination. When Democrats have control of their state governments, they take advantage and improve people's lives. In 2026, there will still be tremendous opportunities in Pennsylvania. We need to make sure that we're holding on to that majority that was won in 22, held in 2024 by 63 votes. And with a popular governor up for re-election, let's press our advantages and potentially make some inroads in the Pennsylvania Senate. Michigan, we're going to have an open governor's race there, and really need to make sure that we're able to go back and hold that Michigan Senate, which we hold narrowly. There may be a special election this spring, which we'll continue to evaluate, and pick up those seats that we lost in the Michigan House in 2024. Wisconsin, finally, this will be the cycle, hopefully, that we're able to finish the 10-year plan of being able to control the state government in Wisconsin. In Minnesota, we need to retain the Senate, making sure Ann Johnson Stewart continues to keep that gavel potentially for a full term, as opposed to just for the 2 years where she will serve, since it was a special election, and then coming back and regaining the House. We need to continue to grow in Georgia. But again, these opportunities are boundless, and there are most likely other opportunities that will present themselves, like some of the special elections that I've seen mentioned in the chat, as I've mentioned in the Michigan Senate. And so with that, what I view Sister District as is, I remember growing up, I grew up in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, home of Fred Rogers. And in times of concern, Fred Rogers would always say, look for the helpers. I'm very lucky because we are all the helpers, whether that's the courageous person that stepped forwards to represent their community and our candidates, which I get to work with, or whether it's all of you that want to be the helpers, or whether it's the team here making sure that if you want to help, we are here to help for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Susan, who can talk about some of those ways to help.
Thank you so much, Sean, and hi, everyone. My name is Susan. I'm the head of organizing at Sister District. This means I get to work with and support Sister District volunteers and volunteer teams all across the country to achieve our collective goals. Like all of us on this call, I was absolutely devastated by the results of the election at the federal level this year. But unlike 2016, when I could not get off the floor for months, that devastation this year evaporated pretty quickly because I could ground myself and my spirit in knowing that I am doing the most important, effective, and impactful work that I can be doing by organizing with Sister District. Sean just really beautifully laid out the case for why state legislatures matter so much and the impact that groups like ours can have when we get in the fight. And I'm now going to talk about how we take the opportunity ahead and make it a reality, and what are the most effective actions people can take right now. But before we get into that, I first just want to thank all of our volunteers and leaders across the country who are joining us tonight. Your work made state legislature races some of the brightest outcomes of this election, and the organizing tactics that we talk about tonight will probably look very familiar to you. And it's because of your work testing and honing and really perfecting these tactics that we are able to now say, hey, we know what needs to be done right now because we've done the work before, and we know how to make an impact because we've proven that these tactics work. So truly, thank you so much. And second, if this is your first time joining a Sister District event, I want to thank you as well. Just by being here, you are making the choice to do something, and we are so excited to be on this journey with you. So I would like to talk for a second about kind of like a little truth about political activism, which is that there is no one size fits all approach. And at Sister District, we really strive to meet you where you are and find the right fit for you in your activism journey. So I'm going to walk through a couple of actions or organizing tactics that people can take right now to help the movement to build progressive power in state legislatures. And most importantly, I'm going to help you find what makes sense for you in this moment. The thing that about Sister District is that there really is something for everyone. Tonight, we're going to talk about a lot of tactics, including how to join your local Sister District team, how to run a giving circle, how to host a house party, and even how to start your own Sister District team. And if those phrases don't mean anything to you, do not worry, explanations are coming. But if your wheels are already turning and you are ready to sign up for this fight, we are posting a volunteer interest form in the chat right now. And I encourage you to fill out this form. Once you do, a Sister District staff member will follow up within 24 to 48 hours with next steps, and we will get you started with where you want to be. And once you filled out this form, let us know in the chat what you're signing up for. Let us know in the chat what you're signing up for, and let's inspire some collective action. Now, very excited to begin our deep dive on the most effective ways to take action now with a really important question, which is like, where do I fit into this puzzle? So I'd love it if we could ask ourselves, are you looking for a built-in community of activists who are dedicated, welcoming, energized, and joyful? Can you give an hour of your time every so often, or up to several hours per week? And are you ready to make some lifelong friends and have the most fun you'll ever have while fighting for change? And if that sounds like you, joining your Sister District team is a great place to start. Sister District teams work to elect state legislature candidates and support year-round power-building organizations. They knock doors, make phone calls, write postcards, host fundraisers, community events, and so much more. But I can tell you that being a part of your local Sister District team is so much more than just making a difference politically. Every Sister District team is a unique community, a close bonded group who's come together linked by a shared passion to make a difference. Sister District teams are incredibly effective, but they also just love to have fun. And that is something we celebrate here because this work is hard and bringing joy into it is so important. And one of the most amazing things I've seen being a part of this community is that there is a place for everyone on their Sister District team. If you love talking to people, then the phone bank team is waiting for you with open arms. If you like working behind the scenes in more logistical roles, there's a place for you coordinating and setting up events and fundraisers. If you like working with numbers or even working with IT, we do a lot of data tracking and we use a lot of technology and could use your help. So even if you have just a few hours to give every year, I promise that there is a place for you on your Sister District team. And I also just want to say thank you to the many people on this call already a part of their local teams. You all make this work impactful and successful. And if you're already involved in your sister district team but want to do more, now is the perfect time to reach out to your team captains to talk about what your team is doing right now and how you can help out. So to recap, if you have anywhere from 1 hour every so often to several hours a week to give your time, and if you would like to join a dedicated, welcoming, and joyful community of activists, joining your local sister district team is for you. And we can go to the next slide. To join your team, visit sisterdistrict.com/teams, or again, fill out the volunteer interest form in the chat and we will get you connected to the right person right away. The light blue areas on this map are all states we have teams in, but fear not, if your state is not in light blue, we will talk in just a little bit about how you can start your own sister district team. But before we do that, I have another round of questions for us. So if we go to the next slide. So let's ask ourselves again, are you looking for a smaller time commitment with a really high impact? Do you want to mobilize your friends and family to take action right now? And are you the go-to political friend in your circle? I imagine many of us are on this call. Or do you enjoy convincing people about candidates and causes? If so, then running a sister district giving circle sounds like a great fit for you. Next slide, please. A giving circle is a group of individuals who collectively make a collective impact by pooling their resources for an organization or a cause or a candidate. At Sister District, we make it easy. We provide guidance on how and where to donate, as well as templates and tools to make your giving circle a reality. Giving circles encourage collaboration and shared decision-making and collectively increase the impact any one person can make by pooling our shared resources. And the beauty of a giving circle is that it's just really simple. The idea is you gather your friends, your family, anyone in your network or your network's network, and decide on an entity to give to. In reality, your friends in your network are much more likely to give to a cause or candidate because of a trusted source like you told them that it is a smart investment compared to any old fundraising email solicitation. We then provide resources like the link to donate, a way to track donations, and email templates you can use to invite others to join your giving circle, and a way to lay out your case for your fundraising entity. And one of the best things about a sister district giving circle is the flexibility. We lay out options for giving. Right now, we would recommend running a giving circle to support sister districts' efforts entering a new phase of this political fight, or to support any of our great partner organizations that are part of our State Bridges program, a program that supports year-round grassroots organizing efforts in key battleground states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Virginia, and Arizona. And starting in April of 2025, we'll also have the possibilities for giving circles for our endorsed candidates as well. It really is as simple as sending an email to your friends or gathering your neighbors in your living room. And starting a giving circle is the perfect play for someone who's looking for a light lift, high impact activity who's ready to mobilize their friends and family. All right, let's move to our next set of questions. Do you love bringing people together for a good time? Can you give closer to 10 to 15 hours of your time? Are you fired up for some in-person commiserating, community building, and action taking? And are you the friend who's always hosting dinner parties? Because if so, I relate to that. But if you are, it sounds like you might be a great fit to host a sister district house party. So right now, the most effective thing that we can do is capitalize on the momentum and backlash and horror people are feeling at knowing that Donald Trump will be our next president. We can capitalize on that momentum and energy by expanding our community of activists and educating potential volunteers on the importance of state legislatures. And then one of the most effective and efficient ways to accomplish this is through a house party. Hosting a house party is a fun, easy, and accessible way to gather like-minded folks in your area and take collective action towards a common goal, driving progressive change at the state level. By hosting a house party, you will accomplish a lot. You will unite the people in your networks. You'll educate your guests about how state legislatures shape critical policy and will be an instrumental check against GOP extremism in this new political era. And you'll inspire your guests to take immediate, concrete action to protect democratic values at the state level. Sister district teams have successfully run house parties for years. Actually pictured on this slide is a house party hosted by our Sister District San Francisco team this year during the election cycle. Often house parties are fundraisers for candidates, and I'd like to shout out Sister District San Francisco and Sister District Greater Chicago and some of our other teams who do a particularly wonderful job at hosting house party fundraisers. And house parties can also be great volunteer recruitment gatherings and movement building events. People are upset about the election, but they're also fired up, which you can see by how many people are on this call this evening. At Sister District, we provide all the materials you need to throw a successful party, a party where you feel confident bringing people together in your home or any venue to tell them why joining Sister District is the most impactful way to make a difference. We provide one-pagers on our work, slide decks on how to tell the story of Sister District and our theory of change, and guides for planning and executing successful house parties, including sample invitations, thank yous, and agendas. All right, we have reached my final set of questions. Appreciate everyone for going on this exercise with me. Last questions. Are you all in on Sister District and looking for a long-term sustainable commitment to progressive change? Are you excited about building a movement to flip states blue? And do you enjoy organizing yourself and others? Well, if you answered yes to these questions, we can go to the next slide. And there is not a team in your area, but you're ready to go all in to make the most impactful change you can, then it is time to start your own Sister District team. We've talked a little bit about Sister District teams through the lens of joining an existing team, so I won't repeat that, but I wanted to share a bit more of the inside scoop on what it means to start your own team. By starting a Sister District team, you will be making the difference in state legislature races that will have lasting impacts across the country. To take Woodson Bradley, who Sean talked about in North Carolina, Sister District raised 16% of Woodson's campaign budget and made 91% of her campaign's total phone calls. So it is pretty safe to say that Woodson could not have won that race without Sister District support from Sister District's many teams and volunteers. And instead of being a drop in the bucket on a federal race, your team could literally be the difference between winning and losing for a crucial state legislature candidate in a battleground state. By starting a Sister District team, you're also going to be taking the guesswork out of political activism. One of the hardest parts of activism is that it's endless. I mean, with infinite time and resources, you could support a million different candidates and causes and still have more to do. But in reality, we're all living really busy lives. So what Sister District does is make sure that your limited time, energy, and resources will be spent in the most strategic and impactful way. Sister District really respects this value as a core tenet of who we are, and that's why we spend so much time each year crunching the numbers and researching to figure out the most important races for Dems to win in order to flip states blue, hold on to slim majorities, or make inroads in gerrymandered states. We then endorse those candidates and pair each team with a specific set of candidates so that your team gets to know that candidate through their district and their story, and likely Zoom appearances and possibly even in-person visits to your team, so that your team will have a vested and personal interest in that candidate, work to elect them, and then celebrate their win as your own because you literally made the difference in their race. When you start a Sister District team, you're going to build a movement in your community that's strategic, impactful, and fun. And I really want to emphasize fun here again. Sister District teams just know how to have fun, from dance party fundraisers to trivia nights to swear jars on virtual phone banks. We make fun a part of who we are, and that is what makes it so easy to keep going in this work when it gets hard. When you start a Sister District team, we're also going to help you take your strengths and run with them. No two Sister District teams are the same, and we can work with you to emphasize your strengths, resources, and time to build your team in a way that works for you. From fundraising to postcarding to phone banking and everything else, we'll help you build a team and carve out a plan that works for you so that you can make an impact without burning yourself out while making this work successful and enjoyable. You're also going to work with Sister District staff to achieve your goals. We are a staff made up of campaign experienced, full-time staffers here to support you every step of the way. We provide how-to guides for fundraising, phone banking, canvassing, volunteer engagement, and more. And when you become a Sister District team leader, you will have a dedicated organizing manager assigned to your team or affiliate to support you every step of the way. We are here to provide anything you need to be empowered and successful. And the last thing I'll mention is that you will get to know other incredible Sister District leaders. It's so easy to feel kind of isolated in this work, which is why I'm so glad we can see everyone on this call. But we make sure to prevent that feeling of isolation by providing connections across teams through monthly leader calls, a fun, active Slack community, and even some in-person leader meetups that we do throughout the years. So that's what comes to mind when I think of what it means to start a sister district team. But I would love to invite one of the most amazing leaders we have to join me to talk about her own experience with her sister district team. Carrie Johnson is a leader with Sister District New York City. She has been involved in Sister District since its founding in late 2016, and she runs a weekly phone bank for New York City volunteers. She's originally from Texas, but has raised her two children in the city and works as an administrator in a preschool. Carrie, thank you so much for chatting with us tonight. I would love to ask you a couple of questions. The first one being, why did you join Sister District?
Oh gosh, I mean, 2016 was really devastating, and I just felt, I think the way many of us feel today, defeated, lost, confused, powerless. I didn't know what to do, and in particular, I lived in a blue enclave. So New York State is democratically controlled, but also even where I live, like all of my elected representatives are very strong progressive Democrats. And I was like, what can I do here in New York for those poor people in Mississippi and Virginia and places where Republicans held a lot of control. I knew at the time that states have unique powers under our Constitution. In other countries, states are really pass-throughs for federal legislation, but states can really make a very large difference on a national stage. And so the mission of Sister District appealed to me for that reason. But also I would say that before 2016, I never did anything political. And politics felt very large and unknowable to me. But a state election sounds a little more manageable. So I would say that was the thing that drew me to Sister District, plus the opportunity to be a leader. I had been president of my Block Association, other types of community work here, but the opportunity to be a leader was also attractive.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing. I love what you're saying about making politics feel a little more like manageable and tangible for us. I love that. What do you think makes Sister District a unique place to do this type of political activism?
So I always say that Sister District is really smart. It picks the right states. It picks the right races in the state. It picks the right candidates within that state. And I always feel like what I'm doing is really strategically sound. And also, again, Sister District brings it down to scale because each team is assigned 1 to 3 candidates. And Sister District NYC, we usually have 2 candidates. So I'm not supporting the state of Virginia, the state of Pennsylvania. I'm supporting real people, and it's very it's very human. So I'm working with a team of humans to support a human who's running for a race to help humans in their district. And very often we get to know the district pretty well, especially if you canvass, then you really get to know the spots of that. And so that narrowness, that smart targeting, I think is the thing that for me keeps me feeling like my efforts are really being used effectively.
Yes, I love that. We're all about the smart strategy, so that's wonderful. What do you enjoy about being a Sister District leader?
So, certainly getting to know the people that I've worked with over the years. And I was just thinking a little bit so I wanted to shout out my current team. So Jonathan, Lisa, Alec, Emily, Cece, Lee, Michelle, some past members, Chad, Alex, Samantha, Shoshana, and also working with Sister District staff. So a real quick shout out to James and Nicole and Taylor and you and Sean and Lala and Liz. I know you folks. I've interacted with you at different times. A few of you have come to my house parties. We host house parties at Sister District NYC. And sister district staff are available not only to help with the parties, but to show up and actually to make the connection with your team, with your community. One of the most important things for me is to feel, like a lot of people, I'm busy. So to give this time, and to take it from my family or, other exciting house cleaning projects or whatever, I want to feel that my time is well used. And by luck of the draw, my team, the Sister District NYC, has been involved in 3 of the tightest races and most impactful races that Sister District has worked on. So our first race was Shelley Simons in Virginia in 2017. And I personally canvassed in Shelley's district the weekend before. That race came down to 1 vote. And then the other 2 races that I can think of off the top of my head are the Pennsylvania House race, worked on Melissa Serrato's race, which was won by 63 votes, an incredibly small number. And that race determined the Democratic majority in the Pennsylvania House. We flipped the House with 63 votes. My team canvassed in the very precinct that was determinative of Melissa Serrato's victory in 2022. And then just this past cycle, we worked in Woods and Bradley's district, won by 209 votes. Her victory ensured that the GOP could no longer run the state of North Carolina into the ground without at least some pushback. And I also want to talk a little, just because it means so much to me. Yes, we win these victories, but what is that accomplished? And in Virginia, I want to highlight that even though we did not hold the majority in 2017, we were close enough. The GOP had to deal with us. And because of that, the state bought into Medicaid expansion, which gave health insurance to 400,000 Virginians. And they also repealed a particularly repugnant law that denied driver's licenses to people who had court debt. And this impacted, I just looked this up right now, 600,000 Virginians who could drive to work, drive their children to school, and go to medical appointments without fear of having their cars impounded. So, and I know also in Pennsylvania, although we do not hold all the majority, that the Democratic majority in the House has led to an increase of $1 billion for school funding across Pennsylvania. And this is why I do the work. This is why I make weekly phone calls, which is not my favorite thing to do, but to think of the money going to schools, of people driving their children to school without fear, and of having health insurance sometime maybe for the first time in their lives. That's why we do the work. The theory of change is that when you have a majority in a state chamber, you can be part of making a meaningful difference for the humans in that state. And that really, really is why I come back to Sister District year after year since you were founded in 2016.
Oh, Carrie, that is so inspiring, and truly a huge shout out to Sister District New York City. It's incredible to watch that story arc from Shelley Simons to Melissa Serrato to Woodson Bradley. That's just incredible. And I just want to thank you so much for speaking with us tonight and sharing your story, and hopefully inspiring a couple of folks to get involved, start their own chapter, join their local team. It's just wonderful to hear your perspective on all of it. So thank you so much for everything you do and for being here with us this evening.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Carrie. With the couple of minutes we have remaining, I would love to invite Sean and Liz back up to the mic for a little Q&A session. We've been getting some awesome questions in the chat. Thank you all so much, everyone. And one question that we've seen phrased a couple of different ways that maybe Sean, you can talk about, is there is a special election on January 7th in Virginia. Can you tell us a little about the stakes of that race and how Sister District is kind of considering that race in their work?
Sure. January 7th, control of the Virginia Senate and the Virginia House, the outright majority is at stake. We're currently assessing, elections that look similarly. Every special election, I have to say, is that it is very special. And so there have been some previous elections, like in 2021, that looked kind of similar, where we were much closer than we originally thought. Obviously, 21 was after Joe Biden. So we're still trying to assess and get some data, but keep things posted, as there may be some, at very minimum, opportunities for us to promote ways to take action with those specific campaigns. But really just trying to figure out, as I had talked through, how best our volunteer capacity can have an impact in those direct elections directly with the campaigns. And so looking forward to having those conversations in the coming days.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Very excited for that election. And then I guess, Liz, a question for you that we've seen is, how do, like, Sister District, I mean, I'm very biased, but like we do such great work. Like, how do we expand and keep scaling and growing our work from here?
Great question. Well, first of all, this call right now is a big part of that. So part of what scaling looks like is more volunteers, more teams, and more places. It's not always, we will, there's always more work to do, but we are very committed to, as you know, to only engaging in races where we feel like our work is really going to make a difference and be beneficial. So we are never going to ask folks to donate to races that are, just like either not on the bubble, as we say, so like not a very narrow margin race. Now, having said that, it can be very hard to know exactly what's on the bubble or not. We've certainly seen years where we endorsed in races. I'm thinking specifically Virginia 2019 or 2020, 2021, where other organizations did not endorse, thinking that those races were too safe, and it turned out they weren't. So part of it is making sure that we have enough volunteer capacity to meet the needs of all of our electoral work. And then we also we've been mostly speaking about electoral work tonight, but we also have a lot of other programs, including our State Bridges program, where we work with organizations that are year-round power building organizations in the states that we eventually endorse candidates in. So if folks have heard, for example, of New Georgia Project or New Virginia Project, Lucha in Arizona, PA Stands Up, some of the other big community-based organizations in states, those are also areas that we use to expand and scale. And the number one way that we're going to scale is for every single person on this call to call 5 of their best friends and convince them to volunteer with us as well.
So true. So true. Thank you, Liz, for sharing that. Okay, with just a minute remaining, Sean, a question for you is, we've seen this trend of our state legislature candidates, we held the line or did better even in some states than federal candidates. How do we consider that? Like, how do we look at that work as we're going forward?
Yeah, I think that that's some of the things that we will be able to determine as we get more data. I don't want to make any too big, broad, sweeping assumptions of what happened in 2024 until we know exactly who voted. And we'll get that data later this year, early next year, and definitely dig in. I think that one of the things that we can definitely recognize, though, is that our candidates are on the front line, recognizing and having conversations with their voters at a much more consistent way than some folks that are above the ticket to them. And so it's very often that we hear the needs of their constituents much more frequently and often and earlier, and the amazing resources that a lot of our volunteers provide and the organization provides to our campaigns allows them to hear that and then maximize and take action. Our campaigns at this level are much more nimble than some of the big statewides that you would ultimately hear. And so there still are some lessons to be learned. And the nature of us being so close to the people means that we just have to be so much more responsive and engage with our voters at a much greater level.
True. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you so much for that. And just to be respectful of everyone's time, I know what we should wrap up soon. Sean, do you want to leave us with any parting words of wisdom?
Sure. As I kind of started my my conversation, you all are tremendously inspiring. I hope that you all feel as inspired by seeing the magnitude of people that are ready to take action. They're ready to take action, not only fun, smart, strategic action, but in the states where we know that we can directly improve people's lives. And so with that, I encourage you to fill out the form that has been dropped in the chat. One of our amazing organizing managers will be reaching out to have a one-on-one conversation. If there's a team that is close by, but you're afraid that it's too far, or if you are just nervous about starting your own team, we're definitely here to make sure that we can facilitate the time that you are able to commit, because collectively that is the impact that we've seen in 2024, and I'm excited that we will see in the opportunities that lay ahead.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.